Curtains have opened up the auditorium to usher the performance of Pablo. Spotlight shines overhead. Director raises their thumb. If everybody's comfortable, I'd like to welcome you to the show. Thank you for waiting to now unwind. Feast your imagination on what you find. What will you find? Paz Babylon.
Paz Babylon.
Paz When you come in, you're gonna hear this. When you come in, you're gonna hear this. I jump behind the couch, duck for cover because the motherfucking are gonna cause death and destruction. The first was a musket gun to kill the elephant, 9mm Glock. Bling Bling's favorite, the Desert Eagle. Buongiorno, labra e genitali. Grab some popcorn or some mushrooms or something. Take a pew. This is the final education episode. It's been quite the odyssey, I'm sure you will agree. However, I naively thought I'd be able to express every word that could ever be thought in the span of 9 hours or so. But I failed miserably. There are so many things I didn't think to say. Didn't even manage to share all my swamp knowledge. Oh no, here comes the pedagogue of the bog. But it is what it is. What is? It's that. Well, what's that? That's that. That's what? But perhaps a few hundred years from now, these podcasts will be mandatory listening across a unified career, though. At least that's what I hope for. But anyway, in the last phase of the education, I taught him about the importance of observance and philosophy. But you're going to want to stick around to see what treats are in store for our fledgling geniuses in this episode. No. It's not your regular tutelage. You see, I don't do things by the book. So stick around, find out, but do be aware that everything you're about to hear may well just be the ramblings of a madman. Another vital component that's too often overlooked in the journey of becoming an artist is experience. I mean, so many people just go from school to college to university into the working world, and they don't really have any notable life experience. Which again, I mean, it's even a problem for the general population, but for artists, it's like you can master the technical elements and you're still not going to be interesting. You kind of need to have some level of interest, in the things you're putting out, and that comes from having life experiences. So one of the experiences I think they should be ushered towards in this phase of their education is military experience. Now, Mr. Janikabalikov is, of course, going to take the reins of the military experience. Now, he's a military man himself, and I did speak about the importance of military history at some point. I think this is the time to, they'll learn how, Britain is an island. It can't really be conquered, actually. Like, it basically, the weather's too shit. It's too shit. It's geographically just a difficult place. So that's where devolved governments come in, because they have to balkanize the island. That's what happened if you look back to the Roman invasion, you look at the Norman invasion. They have to split everybody up because it's not possible. You can't invade it as an island. So they learn things like that, all kinds of strategies. Alexander the Great. We're getting into. And I was reading lately. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation here, but I was reading about the Ephebes, Ephebes of ancient Greece, and this is a kind of like a militia, but it's really a coming of age ritual. So it was a militia in ancient Greece, and they would dress as wolves. So for like a year or so, they would just take on the attributes of a wolf, dress in black, and like kind of come out at night, and they'd have to hunt for themselves. It's actually not even unique to Greece. It's also called the Korios. Again, probably butchering the pronunciation, but Korios in Indo-European or Proto-Indo-European societies is the same thing. They're just dressed as wolves, and you were then no longer bound by the constraints and taboos of civil society. You literally had shape-shifted into the animal you had the skin of, which was a wolf. And actually, this is where stories of werewolves originate. The myth of a werewolf comes from this. It was because they'll dress as a wolf, come out at midnight, and often they would go to neighbouring towns. Well, this is how the story goes, and they could just like rape and murder and pillage and whatever else dressed as wolves. So for a lot of people on the planet, it's like the moon comes out and then men transform into wolves, and they just commit heinous acts, and I'd all consider. So this is what I want them to do, and also actually berserkers. If you know about berserkers in like Viking society, Germanic societies, it's the same thing. Berserker, the etymology is bear, which is just a bear, and serk, which is I think it's shirt, but it's just skin, like the animals is bear skin, and they'll do the same thing with bears. They also did it with wolves, but I butchered enough pronunciations. I'm not going to give you the Germanic one, but yeah, they'll do the same thing with wolves. Also, you kill the animal, you hunt all your food yourself, you just live in the wilderness, and I say this was a coming of age ritual where for a year they would just be sent away, and now you're half a wolf, half a bear, and it's where the berserker rage eventually evolved out of in Germanic society. But again, it all kind of comes from the same place. So this is what they will do, and of course Romulus and Remus are previous with the wolf mother, so they'll be right at home, and Mr. Janika Barlikov, he likes a good wolf skin himself, so he's going to take them into the wilderness for a year, and this is going to be the first coming of age ritual. Is for them to live the life of the Ephebes, the Korios, the berserkers, and yeah, they're gonna embody the wolves. And another coming of age ritual, and I spoke about this previously, I think on another episode. I said, if you've not taken a fistful of acid and listened to Probably All in the Mind by Oasis, you haven't finished puberty. And I stand by that. I think psychedelics are a real coming of age ritual that's been completely taken from our society. I absolutely believe in the idea that we were once a shamanistic society. So Mr. Janika Barlikov will be their shaman. They will imbibe, and Mr. Janika Barlikov's gonna don his Auroch mask. His Auroch mask this time, straight from Starcar. He's going to be wearing his Auroch mask from Starcar, and the sound of drums are going to appear. But you see, it's not drums. It's Miss Janika Barlikov just slapping her giant tits up and down, and she's dressed in a burqa, by which I mean a burqa. Just head to toe in bear fur, because it's very important that we keep her modest. But Mr. Janika Barlikov's just fucking bollock naked. He's just bollock. His dick's flapping about, and he's completely covered in ochre. Nothing but an Auroch mask and some ochre, and he's holding a chalice above his head like Mufasa. And inside is a little concoction, an ayahuasca brew. Just infused with some magic mushrooms, LSD, peyote. He's not fucking around, and he even sprinkles in a pube's worth of nightshade too. and then tops it off with some birch sap to sweeten the taste. First, he passes it to my own offspring, and they pass it side to side, each taking a sip. Their minds are, of course, opened. One sip makes the material crumble like a soggy biscuit. This is gonna make them debate the philosophy of metaphysics in the future. They have the experience to undertake such a task now. They're not fakers, they're not phonies. They have real experience. Another sip reveals sacred geometric patterns and platonic forms. The spherical music of Pythagoras is audible to their ears now, and Da Vinci and Hugh partake. No doubt these visions are going to be conducive to their artworks in the future. So seeing colours and shapes combine in ways they've never conceived before, having ideas, for fresh ideas. Romulus and Remus, the bastard twins, each take a swig, and they'll learn lessons in selflessness and symbiosis. Pack Choi imbibes, and he perhaps is the most experienced of them all up to this point. He's been growing cannabis for years now. He has a cannabis farm. Mary Jane Choi is his mother's name, and then finally it comes to Zoinbop, and he just starts downing the whole thing. Zoinbop is a fucking mad lad. He is absolutely zoined. Mr. Nikobolikov is standing over him and looks like Indra to Zoinbop's eyeballs. He just has lightning coursing through his veins, and Indra's just stood smiling over him with many thumbs up. And only Zoinbop could explain what else he sees that night, but he never will. Some people speculate that psychedelics actually increase intelligence. I'm not really of that opinion. I think what is actually happening is the brain is being deconditioned, because we have a lot of behaviours in our life that we take on from our school days. And in school, especially in state schools, especially in secondary schools, as I've said previously, a huge part of it is just about popularity. And you see, it's a very convenient for the state when this happens, when it becomes the cool thing to be stupid. It's not cool to be super intelligent in a school, which is a bit of a problem. If the purpose of your school is to create geniuses, then you can't really have that when you have this popularity stuff going on. But when you take psychedelics, and I can say this for myself, it just deconditions all of that. You just go like, oh, I don't give a shit. You just basically stop caring, because it's ultimately a matter of insecurity as to why you would care about it to begin with. That's what popularity is. I say the false dichotomy of inferiority and superiority. It's kind of all based upon insecurity. They're the most popular people are the most insecure people, and you have the most to have these kind of like nonsensical rules to abide to, like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, and one of them is you can't be intelligent. But with psychedelics, just kind of wipe it out and just go, yeah, I don't give a fuck. I don't care about being stupid. I don't care about being intelligent. Just kind of completely deconditions to myself. So I think that's more what it is. But again, a very vital experience to have, I think, for our academy, and it's actually very similar to a warlike experience. Actually, I mean, if we're talking about a platoon here, and you're a psychonautic platoon. Some people might need to be cared for, in that you have to have enough kind of sensitivity to understand if someone's having a bad time. Perhaps you have more experience, and the people in the group will look to you if you have more experience. So, you have to have a poker face, even if you're tripping balls, to imbue confidence in everybody else. You have to be a leader. And of course, leadership would have been really drilled into them throughout every phase of education through the football classes. I would have been rotating the captaincy the entire time, but create real leaders in these moments, and it's like PTSD. If you're around someone who's having a bad trip, like it is like PTSD, you know, that they kind of suffer from saying it really is like a warlike experience, and you've got to observe your subconscious with stoicism. You know, you can't be impulsive and be taken away by it all. You just have to kind of accept it for what it is and try and be as relaxed as possible. And another thing with the military is like, I'm really fascinated by the SAS and this kind of stuff and the psychological elitism. But you see, this elitism, as we talk about with all elitism, throughout the entire nation in the education system, I don't think it should be elite. I think it should be ubiquitous. I think it, like, when we're going back to like the people being offended by words, for example, it's like I guarantee any leader of any group of the military, like any marshal, whatever, they would back themselves to be able to make anybody not be offended by words, to have that mental like solidity instead of fragility. They would back themselves to be able to do that, and yet we're not doing it on a national level, you know. And actually, it makes you think that the military are going to have to be a vital ally in the fight for free speech one day, whether they like it or not. Because if I can see from a distance, like, that you have people being conditioned to have a mental breakdown, that's what's happening. People have a mental breakdown upon hearing a particular word, you know, like a scuttlehead. Someone just, oh, he's scuttlehead, and they'll break down. And I see that. You think foreign militaries won't be able to see the same thing? Of course they will. You're having a blatant Achilles heel, and you're endangering every single other person in your under your command. Everyone is now in danger because someone will go, "What is it, scuttlehead?" And then start just firing off the fucking machine gun, going AWOL. You run that risk unless you address the reality. Like, if you're offended by words, you're too mentally fragile to be in the military. That is absolutely a bridge they're going to have to cross at some point. They're going to have to say, hey, listen, scuttleheads, you're going to have to learn how to not be offended by scuttlehead. And that's what they do. You know, if in the SAS, they'll interrogate people, dig up all of the past history, the most fucked up things, really try and trigger that person. Because if they're triggered, you're not ready for the SAS. That's it. You're not mentally elite. You're not allowed to be in. You're a liability. You know, so it really is a factor here that, you know, I say it's an inevitability. They're going to have to address that, because, you know, people are being conditioned to have a mental breakdown upon hearing a word, and all they have to do is just these special words through a tannoy, and you have a big problem on your hands. You know, people have been conditioned to be affected by words. I don't know, what's that like? Hypnosis. Is that what it's like? It's like hypnosis, you know, where you say a word and it just, by reaction, it triggers a reaction. You know, just triggers a reaction immediately without thought. Like, yeah, it's kind of like hypnosis. And speaking of hypnosis, I said before, I'm a huge fan of Darren Brown, Sir Darren, and what I like about him is he does kind of have a wider point to his kind of experiments and shows. He wants to show kind of human nature in part, a lot of its virtue, and this is kind of what this segment of their education is about. We want to make them good civilians. So we've dealt with the observation in previous episodes. This is kind of about the experience, the introspection. So now you're looking inside and not just outside. And then finally, on top of that, it's going to be cultivation. They need to learn how to cultivate virtue in themselves rather than just seeing it where it lacks in others. They have to see it within themselves. And I think that some Darren Brown-esque experiments are very good for that. Because, you know, a lot of people's virtue can often be circumstantial also. There's many different circumstances we all arise out of, and you don't know how particular changes in your environment's going to affect each person. You know, like people can think like, oh, you're a very peaceful person, but it's like, hey, put that person in a stuffy room. You know, put a person in a stuffy room, let a mosquito on the loose, on the prowl, and then, you know, see how peaceful that person is going to be. You know, because they're peaceful when all the conditions are right, but are you peaceful always, all the time? You know, and these are kind of some things you have to play with. I say people change. Money can change for you. I have a brother, and I mean, I should say, because he might listen. Of course, legend, love him. He's the best, but because that is a danger with the podcast. You actually don't know who is going to listen to any of these, but I do have a little story, because he never really had money, and this might sound like nonsense, but I promise you it's absolutely the truth. He never had money, and then he got a job working for the Bin Ladens, who, by all accounts, lovely people. by all accounts, really sound guys. The Bin Ladens, like Osama was just one, you know, rotten apple. The rest of them are really cool people. And he's a PE teacher, and, you know, I've already talked about my love for PE teachers and you know, the high IQ. So no, I'm not gonna have a go, but actually there was one time, and I looked over my brother's shoulder, and he was writing a shopping list, a Christmas list, and he was writing the word Gucci, and he spelt it G double. I mean, it's not even funny. You're going to be incredibly disappointed. He spelled it GOOCHI, which is a mistake we could all make, I think. But anyway, you got a job working for the Bin Laden, and then the world shut down. Do you remember that? The world completely shut down. Everyone was in lockdown. So anyway, he was now a PE teacher, teaching over Zoom to the Bin Laden family. And just getting paid wedge for it. So the word daylight and robbery do spring to mind. Anyway, I went, okay, I'm going to go to my mum's house one day. I can't remember why. Just take a shit on her face or something. So I go to my mum's house, and she goes like, oh, like your brother's busy working. You know, don't disturb him. But I do remember I walked past his bedroom at one point, and I said he's teaching on Zoom. But as I was walking by his bedroom, I just heard him going, nah, lad, Khabib would smash him. So anyway, yeah, I went downstairs. My mum wiped the shit off her face, and then my brother came down, and I say he'd never had money his entire life, and now suddenly he's just handed this huge amount of money, and you don't know how it's going to affect people. And as he came into the room, I saw that he had a grey suit on with a pink tie, like a huge like Rolex watch covered in jewellery, and the whitest trainers you could ever imagine. And I thought, oh, you're a reformed criminal African pastor. So you've decided to be you're a pastafarian, you know, just grinning away like General but naked. And yeah, that's the thing. So you don't know how money is going to affect people. Is the moral of the story. And so, you know, I want to create this Darren Brown-esque experience. Let's make them win the lottery and then take it all away. You know, I again, with the whole environment being the only thing that's keeping you virtuous, it's like, okay, how many, you know, events is gonna make someone like, push someone off a wall, or, you know, shoot Stephen Fry with a water pistol. I want to you know, have them paying for goods with nothing but a blank piece of paper by the end of this. Let's truly break the matrix with their confidence. You know, we need to start to cultivate virtue. I feel like the experiments of Sir Darren are very very good at this, and And there'll be homelessness is a very good one also to imbue gratitude in people. And I know you might be going like, oh yeah, but it's not a bit dangerous, you're not like scared. I say, well, firstly, we're dealing with werewolves here, they'll be fine. But also, if you were worried, Zach Choi implanted a GPS suppository in Pak Choi's anus long ago. So they're gonna be tracked the whole way. And if that's not enough protection, Mr. Janikabalikov will be in the skies as a homeless man. He's gonna have his trench coat concealing his AK-47. And, he'd be just like swigging away, going, they call me Indra. That's why I drink white lightning. And there are many unvirtuous deeds you can do in life that are valuable experiences to have it also. Although you wouldn't want to encourage them. You can be addicted to a substance and then overcome that addiction. That's a real valuable experience to have in life. But again, you can't really encourage it. It's breaking a heart. Perhaps being the dregs of society, being on the dole, having to live on couches, being at home when you're in your 20s, that's another valuable experience, because as I talked about, the fathers teaching sons in society and the mothers teaching daughters, when you have these single parent families, it's like, how are they going to teach you how to maintain a relationship if they can't even do so? So you have to even learn from the mistakes of your parents, if you're observant. Perhaps they'll have to seduce a sugar mama. But that's another one. And then the whole prison of enablement that comes out of that. And again, these are things that you would never encourage for a society as a whole. But it's like, as artists, you're forced into a life of vagrancy. Because we live in an anti-art society. We're also forced into being a businessman. Pretty much against our will as well. And it makes me take an interest in the whole world of business. And I can say, I think that serial killers, artists, and elite businessmen are cut from the same cloth. But you see the differences. It's like if someone says, hey, I want to start a business, people just go like, oh yeah, sure. Like, no matter what the claim might be, they'll go, oh, you're breaking the matrix if you, you become a businessman. It's like, actually, no one gives a fuck. You're not actually rocking the boat in any way. Whereas if you say you want to be an artist, you will be absolutely shown. And the free market doesn't really exist for us. I'm reading a book at the minute called The Satyricon by Petronius. And he's got a document in the fall of Rome, not the actual physical fall, but really the societal collapse that leading up to it. And it's fascinating because he's just basically describing the modern world, saying how there's an oversaturation of bad artists, and they kind of obscure the good ones, and then like how now the slaves, or now the slave owners, basically people are rich and no one knows why. So that's kind of the same thing. Like, I think I talked before about how there was a lot of celebrities being pushed, and I'm confused by that, because I'm like, well, what have they done? But it's the same thing for like the world of business. Like, there's so many millionaires on the planet, and they all say the same thing. You can find, they have YouTube channels and stuff. They'd be like, oh, once you're a millionaire, you realise everyone's a millionaire. Like, you always find that everyone has loads of money. And it's like, yeah, but why? Like, what is the great deeds of these people? It's like, I have no fucking clue, but they'll spend, thousands of pounds on a bottle of water and all kinds of, lunatic behaviour. But the meritocracy skedaddled long ago, basically. So, this is the ultimate reason. But I say, no one cares if you start a business, but to really believe in yourself, particularly in the art, it's also quite a perverse thing, because it's like that's what like all great art and obviously your natural instinct is to tell children to believe in themselves, to make someone believe in themselves. You'll go, oh, that's what you should do. But then in our society, when they turn 16, suddenly they're like, oh no, we were lying about that. Actually don't believe in yourself, we were lying, conform. that's what actually happens, because there's many masochists within the matrix. That's the reality of it. It's kind of divided between psychopaths and masochists. So Yeah, I mean, it's a strange thing. So my natural instinct still to tell a child to believe in themselves, but then I think like, 10 years from now you're going to have a big problem if you still believe in yourself. And we're kind of we're punished for our observation, in fact, and all of our academy will thusly be too, because we made them so observant in the last phase of their education. Well, to be an artist is really just to be observant. You've just said, okay, well, this is clearly the thing I'm best at doing in life. And it's like you're now punished for that. I might not be the best at what I do. I mean, some people say, I am the best at what I do, and we can get into that a whole other time. But it's like, irregardless of the quality. It's like I for sure do this the best, better than anything else I can do. I for sure do this better than anything else I can do. And yet you're still bludgeoned for that. They won't go like, oh yeah, that makes sense that you do that because it's what you can do. They go, no, you have to conform. It's kind of like basically what if you take anything away from this, I'm saying basically all artists are gay, because being gay is really an identity. Well, why can't I identify as an artist? I have evidence. And it really exposes the nonsense of kind of like a righteousness behind such a thing also, because they'll go, well, it's really despicable for someone to say, if someone identifies as something, you forcing them to do something they don't want to do. Because this really is the equivalent of a gay person saying, hey, like, this is just who I am, this is what I identify as, I can't really be anything else. And then people just going like, oh, you're just fucking pussy though. It's the same thing with artists, they just want you to conform, and it's like, hey, maybe I identify as an artist, but it's not to do with identity. That's not the righteous thing here. The reason why they're okay with the gay stuff is because, I say, the globalists are obsessed with depopulation, so they push anti-natal cults like atheism and feminism. But same thing for homosexuality. It's like, well, you can't reproduce. It's a good thing for the state. And I think maybe Socrates or perhaps Aristotle said the same thing. It is just population control ultimately. But I say, if it was the righteous thing, it's like, oh well, someone identifies as something and people aren't allowing, they're being oppressed for not being able to express themselves as one. It's like, well, artists are in the same boat, but again, artists are so fucked over in society, people don't even talk about it. But really, you're not allowed to be an artist. And I think this comes down to vagrancy acts, actually, because if you look into vagrancy acts, I should have really researched a bit of this before so I could give you the exact deets. But basically, there's vagrancy acts in Britain, and I say you're forced into that because if you're a working class artist, you have to start from zero. You have to start from a point where you're making no money, and then eventually, you live these kind of vagrant existences, and then you manage to get money, and then people go like, oh, look at that great artist. I mean, John Donne is like this, for example. He had a lot of sugar mamas, and it's like, but then no one really cares. Because they just go like, oh, because he was doing the thing he's clearly best at doing. No one cares once you get past the point, but just in the early days, it's like, oh, that's vagrancy. So anyway, there's vagrancy acts in place. I think under the Tudor kings, I want to say, the punishment for vagrancy was the death penalty. So the monarchy in this country would kill working class artists, basically. If you try to deviate and say, actually, I'm going to try and, make a living from go my own way, then, they can just kill you. Because anyone can just make that accusation, and you'll hear all the time, and go, oh, that's not a real job. But then it's like someone makes that accusation, okay, well, now you're a vagrant. And if you're a vagrant, you can be killed. And then after this, when it stops being the death penalty, you will be enslaved for it. Again, I do encourage you to look up these vagrancy acts, because I should have researched, but this is what would happen. I think it's called the Virginia Company. So literally with some of the transatlantic slave trade enslaving African people, British people would be sent to the same plantation because of vagrancy acts. So again, if it wasn't a death penalty, you literally are enslaved. And then, you'll have like penal colonies, like Australia, for example, because, it's an island of prisoners. But again, most of them were vagrants. So it's really just dark, So whenever you see those bogan cunts, I know the lingo. If you ever see a bogan cunt, just know, they might have a bit of artistic DNA within them, Fucking start, get your stencils out and start fucking drawing a kangaroo's bollocks. But these vagrancy acts still exist in Britain too. Because like supermarkets and takeaways and all this kind of stuff are incredibly wasteful. So they'll throw away a lot of the food that's completely fine to eat. They'll just throw it away. And if a homeless person goes into like a bin outside and eats the perfectly good food that they've just thrown away, they will be arrested. It's the same law going back to when it used to be the death penalty, but they'll go like, oh no, like that's all. I think it's like 500 people a year when I looked at this that still get arrested every year, just homeless people. Really, the corporations should be mandated that if they have food go and spare, that's perfectly fine to eat. They should have to give it to homeless people. But the opposite happens, there'll be a sandwich that's going to rot in a dumpster, and if a homeless person tries to grab it, they'll go, no, that's not your food, that belongs to Poseidon. Yeah, but I mean, it's gonna go mold. No, stop it, we'll let it go mouldy, and then they'll get put in prison. So these vagrancy acts still exist, but I think this is a huge part of like why people hate people that don't conform, again, particularly artists, because it's a remnant of this. I mean, think about it. If you had a family member who tried to not conform, I'm going to say the artist thing, we're talking about vagrancy, because it could just be someone who literally, is just like lazy or something. But no, like often you'll see when it's depicted throughout history, they're like buskers. They're often pictured with an instrument. They're very clearly artists, just starting from the bottom. So there'll be clear artists like buskers or whatever. But say like you have a brother who's like, I'm going to go and busk, and then gets his head chopped off. The next generation, the second someone goes, hey, I'm going to do something different, I'm going to be creative, it's like they'll go, no, absolutely don't. And it's like, no, this has survived up to modern day where people still have the same fear, the same perception around the arts. And, trying to do your own things in life. But it's like your head's not going to get cut off. That's gone. But if the fear's still there, like a lot of people just viscerally react as if that's going to happen. And I think this is where it comes down to. It's vagrancy acts. And but I say the kind of vagrancy you're forced into is because you have no money, and then you're forced into, having to basically survive. So people go like, oh well, couldn't you just like make some money before? It's a problem for some people because maybe they can't be employed anyway. It's going back to the qualification, the whole qualification based society. That could be the problem also. It's not really. A solution that's doable for everyone, but and then it goes back to the work experience in the last phase where it's like, okay, they should have a little bit of money that's made before they leave school, so that way they have more freedom to do what they want to do, because it's really the age-old debate of like money versus time, because you need the time to do the things you want to do. And then some people are like, oh no, well, you need money to be able to live a life of comfort, and then it just becomes a matter of sacrifice. All of those things they say, like if you're living on a couch or something like that, it's like, well, that's a sacrifice. But then you don't have money, and to a society as you might be living a more unvirtuous existence. But I mean, the idea you can do both, again, coming down to the time thing. Yeah, I mean, often it's not true. Like, it's very... You'll find a couple of examples in history where you'll find people who are great artists and they also, had like a full-time job. It's like, yeah, generally, no. Because you're just taking the hours away from your day, and you need those hours to be able to create. And, so some people might go like, oh, well, why wouldn't you have like just a menial job in the meantime. Well, there is one good reason, I think, which is, you can die any day, which again I think comes down to the entitlement of our society as a whole. They think that they're invincible. You're never going to die. It's like, well, you can die any day, so maybe you should be aspiring to do only great things. That is really, I don't think I need to elaborate on that. That's a good enough reason, I think, to not conform. But it is useful, and they will conform for a brief stint in this phase of their education with the work experience. I wanted to have menial jobs, because then you see all is fleeting. You say the real hollowness and dejection of living a life you don't really want to live. You think you have all these ideas for books and a piece of art and whatever else, and then it's like you don't actually know when you're going to be able to write it. You don't actually know when you're going to be able to write it, because now you're stuck in an office. It's like, that's a very useful experience to have. Same for manual labour too. Say that I wanted to be integrated into all pockets of society, and they can channel their berserker aggression. Because as we were saying before with prisons of enablement, that's where it gets you. If you've ever been in a prison of enablement, it's like you lose your aggression. That's what I learned from it. You lose your aggression. And so, you just don't do the things that need to be done, which really should start every day with aggression. And not just frivolously swinging at people. I mean, channel the aggression. Just say, this is what needs to be done, and have urgency with everything you do. Again, that's a very, very useful thing. I think, the manual labour jobs, what you can learn how to do. And also charity jobs. Now, you see, a few episodes back, I would say it's not a good thing to integrate everyone into schools. And the thing is, that doesn't mean you should integrate people into society, because actually the point of not integrating people into schools is that they're not really integrated into society. People are just telling you that's happening, but it's really not. And you see, this podcast is often me against the world. And I intend on flipping the world upside down, because it's currently inverted. It's how I see it. People care about words, but they don't care about actions. So you can make a joke about any so-called special group, and people go, "Oh, that's terrible." But meanwhile, though, everyone who condemns you for your words is not doing anything in their actions to actually help those people. So, if say you make a joke involving disabled people, how often do they interact with disabled people? Never. No, barely anyone does, really. But it's then they'll get offended by words. Or things like refugee shit. It's how many times have you taught a refugee to speak English? Oh, 0. But you're going to be offended by a fucking joke, because they once a society only cares about words, they cease to care about actions. So this is what I want to do. I want to flip it on its head. They can say whatever they want, So we've already revived the city Dionysia. They're going to say whatever they want. They can satirize everything they want, but they will be the most charitable youths in the entire neighbourhood. I want them to have hands-on charity work, truly integrate and interact with every pocket of society. They want to help abandoned animals. Work with disabled people. They want to teach refugees English, and another part with teaching English, they have an interaction. Maybe they will teach Arabic in exchange. And so I've been teaching them languages this whole time, but we all notice with any supremacist, and this is a supremacist of every persuasion, of which many exist. It's not just white supremacists; it's every kind of supremacist. Is they're never polyglots. I don't know if you noticed that none of them are polyglots. They're not hey, look how superior our IQ is. And then speak several languages, the hardest ones. They don't speak Arabic or Hebrew or Chinese or Russian, and that's the languages they're going to learn here. They're going to prove themselves. They're going to be truly elites, and those languages they had to learn. And I say they're going to be translating works as always. That's what a lot of this has been building up to be the first to translate an epic of a country that's never been done before, and also to travel. So now's the time in their life they're finally going to travel. And I'm going to send my 4 sons to the 4 corners of the world. Pak Choi is going to go on a pilgrimage to Seoul to see if the grass is truly greener on the other side. Got Romulus and Remus, they're going to be doing the limbo and cutting coconuts over at the Carnival of Rio de Janeiro. But also, we're going to have Operation Rhino Sack. And this is going to be where we send Huge Nikobolikov and Zongbop to the South Pole. And Antarctica is a suspicious place. You have more freedom in North Korea to see North Korea as a tourist than you do Antarctica. We'll do an episode on it at some point, but I just want to point that out. Very suspicious place. But we'll send them to Antarctica, and through the miracles of frostbite, the extra ball is going to fall off, and then they're going to throw it in the air and header it to a penguin. And instead of throwing hats in the air for graduation, this is my ritual for their graduation. So that's Operation Rhino Sack. And of course, Leo is going to have returned to Italy, and he'll be doing all kinds of acts of debauchery and degeneracy in his phase of experimentation with the ghosts of Michelangelo and Raphael. Making his mother proud and his father facepalm a cloud.
Fotami più forte, scopami come se fossi uno nu.
Preferisci un culo bianco o rosa?
Rosa.
Suffocare sul mio cazzo. Leo, mi piaci così tanto.
Piace anche a me.
Assaggia il mio sputo, poco spinno. Mi piaci.
Il tiramisù mi gocciola dal culo.
Prenderei un cuccaio. Ingoialo. Mettiamoci un settimo cazzo nel culo, poco spinno. Ti spelanco il culo.
Mia matita.
Non ho finito con te, poco spinno.
Now, you see, this is all fine and dandy, of course, but the thing is that the genius is going to be so undeniable. The ambition is going to be so high. The perseverance is going to be so unparalleled. Undoubtedly, the genius will be recognised. They will be caught in the web of fame someday, just for their talents, for the gifts that they've given to the world. And you see, now this can become a scandal. It takes me back to Sedarin. I remember watching a show of Sedarin's, and he began the show by talking about how he was a closet homosexual. He's a gay man, and he was scared about coming out of the closet because he was thinking it's a really big deal, and what's everyone going to think, and because it's such a huge thing in his life. But then when he came out, it was like, oh, no one cares. No one gives a fuck, because you construct these fears in your own mind where you think everyone must really care about whatever I've done in my life, whatever I've said in my life, and you really think that people are going to care, but they mostly don't. Like, no one actually gives a shit. It's just your own fear. So I absolutely agree with the point made by Sedarin, but I feel there's a part that he kind of missed out, which is, why do people have this paranoia to begin with? And I put it down to the fake news, the environment of sensationalism. Because you've seen scandals of people in the past, and you've seen how they just get hounded by the media, and then they're made into a social pariah as a result of those actions. So you go like, oh, well, it might be the same for me. I've done things in my life. It could be, it could be a scandal at any moment. But it's kind of not applied evenly. It's not a fair thing applied across the board here. What's a scandal for one person is not a scandal for another person. I mean, let's take Donald Trump, for example. If Donald Trump decided he was going to give a blowjob to a Mexican, just experiment a little bit, that would be front page news in every newspaper on the planet. I give the best blowjobs. Everybody says, Donald, you got lips like Carl. Much better than Don Lemon over at CNN. Terrible blowjobs, terrible. Too much teeth, neglects the balls. My blowjobs are the best. Yeah, that's my Trump impression. Do let me know if you'd like to hear an impression of anyone else anytime you want. You know, I'm a man of many talents. But you see, the point is, the person writing that article has probably gave 5 blowjobs for brunch. You know, and that's not a scandal. But you see, the second you go against the state, anything you've done in your life becomes a scandal. Maybe not even just against the state. The second they can just profiteer from the scandal, they may well just capitalise on it and make it a scandal. But you see, I mean, this kind of comes back to why I can like tell degenerate tales from my own past, because well, I mean, there's multiple reasons. I say comedy's a divine alchemy where you can take the unvirtuous deeds in your life and transmute them into humour, which is a good thing. But also it's just honesty, but also like they can never then scandalise anything I've done, because I've told you. Like the idea that at any point they're gonna go, oh, this guy had sex with a prostitute. Like, yeah, we know. We got told. Go episode 2. Check it out. Like, you know, it's already out there. You know, so they can't really use anything against you. The way the scandal kind of works is, if I was to say to people like, oh, you know, this is really bad for society, don't be sexual, don't do all this, and then they told you everything I've done in my past, I would just seem like a hypocrite. It would be a scandal, and everyone just think I'm a huge liar. So you see, there's no way around it. You just have to be honest. You have to just come out from the beginning and just tell everything you've done from the outset. And also on that, it's like, we're talking about all the most degenerate things I've done. Really, I've like, you know, had sugar mamas and I've fucked women frivolously. That's my kind of bad deed. But it's like, and the reason why I feel bad for that is I've been brought up in a really hypersexualized society. There are reasons for why this occurred. It's really glamorized. People just pat you on the back and go, oh, that's cool. Well done, thumbs up. That's like the actual society we live in, but I never want to glamorize it because I don't think it's good for society. And I think, you know, I mean, what's really bad about it is that you unnecessarily break hearts, which is not a virtuous thing. So I know I can accept that and understand that. I understand it because of having those experiences, but also because I was a sex addict. A sex addict and like a porn addict tend to go hand in hand. So I've seen a lot of porn also, and there are levels to this. Like there are people right now participating in gangbangs and like pissing on each other and all sorts, and that's not a scandal in any newspaper on the planet. It's not a scandal because, you know, they lack ambition. Say our ambition's always been sky high in the academy, and you know, some people are like, oh well, you know, this makes like egotistical people, but it's like the flip side you're seeing is really a world that lacks ambition, you know, because we'd all love to be, you know, cream pied by several people and have a heroin addiction. Who wouldn't? You know, that's a great life, but you don't do it because you're just like, well, I have other ambitions here. So that's kind of gonna, you know, get in the way of that. But the people who are actually doing that shit, is like, they just have no ambition and they're not thinking about like a legacy. So you know, that's where that comes in. But as I say, because our academy does have ambition, there will be, you know, the names will be out there. There will be popular enough to be self-sufficient. Well, you know, anything they've done in their life, the little excursions to Italy, for example, that can become a scandal. I say it's not a scandal. Scandals really don't exist, you know. Like, it just comes down to the population having no free thought. They don't think for themselves, so they allow the media, the newspapers, the fake news to manipulate whatever their thoughts are. And also, they don't actually know what virtue is anymore. So true virtue has to replace virtue signalling. And they will all virtue signal, even on this podcast. There are things that I've said on the podcast in these last few episodes which y'all would have listened to and not even batted an eyelid. You just go, oh, whatever. No one actually gives a fuck about it. Fast forward a few years from now, they could just present anything that I've said and go like, hey, look, this is a scandal. This is the thing you all have to be offended by now. And it would be millions of people who would go along with it. And it's not real. You know, they're just being told that's what they have to do and they'll go along with it unquestioning. Just completely, just without question, they'll go, yeah, absolutely, that's just, I disavow. And that's the other thing, there's the crux of this point. Whenever you see these scandals, not only is it entirely based on dishonesty and hypocrisy, because any of the public who are like, oh, do you hear about that celebrity scandal? It's like they're living way more degenerate lives themselves. You know, half the time they're more degenerate, but everyone will like look at each other with these lying eyes and go, yeah, absolutely, it's terrible. But you see, even in like these circles, the celebrity circles, I cannot think of a single person when there's been a so-called scandal where someone's just like, yeah, I don't give a fuck. It always has to be disavow. Oh, I disassociate with people like that. That's terrible, and they'll make them a real pariah. And I guess that's how cancel culture can come about. You see, this will not happen with our academy because, I say, they have a brotherly bond like you've never seen before. They have true solidarity, so a scandal can never really occur. You know, and it's the point. Like, if someone says, "Hey, you know, Leo killed a guy," you know, Hugh Nicobolakov might just go, "And what?" And then Romulus and Remus going, who hasn't killed a guy? I don't give a fuck. You know, behind closed doors, they'll of course, you know, say it's not good to kill people, but to the public, and I would be the same. You know, I have loyalty. If any one of my friends fucking did any so-called scandal, I would just be like, I don't give a fuck. Behind closed doors, you might have your own opinion, but it's like, you know, you got to back your bros basically, and that happens nowhere in society. Everyone's just so happy to throw everyone under the bus because they have no loyalty, and a lack of loyalty is a lack of virtue. To have loyalty is a virtue, so they'll have loyalty, and this would have been really drilled into them, of course, again by Mr. Nicobolakov. You know, because through his interrogations, he would have went through every past deed in the lies, going, you watch female porn, admit it. You're just poking with a cattle prod. You watch Bailey J. You touch yourself watching Bailey J. And you know, they'll have to just either be honest about the things they've done in the past or not do them at all. Because, you know, this is what they call a Zersetzung, which is when you go against the state, which again, you don't even really have to do. Say, maybe they just consider you to be an enemy of the state. Well, you know, they'll try and fuck up your life, and they have many ways of doing this. You know, Mr. Nicobolakov has contacts in the 77th Brigade, and the JTRIG, I believe, is the is the branch. These like special service things, and they can like hack someone's phone, and then send a message from that person's phone to anyone they want. So let's say you're married, you have a wife, they can have you send messages to a woman, and all these, like, they'll set up like honey traps and all this kind of stuff to create a scandal to ruin that person's life. That's what they do. So again, the idea of like having solidarity and stop disavowing everyone. As it comes down to the art thing, is like, what happens to separating the artist from their art? Is that just out the window now? You know? So, you know, all this is very important, but you need to have everyone in your life, you know, not buy into this nonsense. You just go, yeah, I don't give a fuck. And that's what they have. Everyone in our entire academy is just going to have each other's back. And you know, they have a real... a real bond. Say, Pak Choi is going to be having to swat off Pyongyang honey traps like flies. You know, they're going to be completely after him. And it's important to be virtuous anyway, just to have a peaceful society. But this gives you another reason to be virtuous in life, because whatever you've done, they're going to try to scandalise. Even when it's not a scandal. Say, scandal doesn't really exist. The person writing it, like, let's see the fucking skeletons in that person's closet. You know, Why don't we know the names of the people who've gone to Jeffrey Triton's island? They don't seem to be very concerned about that. But the second, you're Leo and you've been having a bit of a party in Venice, it's like, then that might become a scandal someday. Again, and if you're not honest about it, that's why I think that's why you have to be. And when they're away on all of these trips, I will destroy all of the work they've been creating. And you might go, oh, that's a very evil thing, Pablo. But so they think. I'll let them think it's been destroyed, because they said they would have been working on Juvenilia throughout all the travels. And getting inspiration for their epics and for their works of art on their travels also. But I want to teach them a lesson in perfectionism, because this is almost like a Tibetan mandala. So they'll make these great works of art with sand, and they'll spend hours making them, really beautiful things, and then they'll just wipe it all away to show the impermanence of all things. And I feel like this is basically what I'm doing, but it's really to teach them about the cons of perfectionism, because it's a very good thing. You really do improve when nothing's good enough. When nothing's good enough, you're like, okay, well, the next thing has to be better. The next thing has to be better. However, if you ever lost work, I've lost work. I literally have written a couple of books before that were a loss to the ether, and then you realise, like, if you rediscover any lost work, then you just go like, oh, it's not even good, because you improve at such a fast rate. Then you look back and go, yeah, it's not even good, but you can really study for hours over and really be a perfectionist. It's a blessing and a curse, but they'll learn it from this, because I'll eventually hand it back to them, and they will see the mistakes in all of the works they deem to be masterpieces. And that's the thing, you just have to understand that you will never be satisfied as a perfectionist. You just have to work as hard as you can, but then really, once you get to the limit, once you meet the deadline, you've just got to put it out, because you will always be able to make adjustments to it, and those adjustments might not even be for the benefit of the work at hand. So they need to learn these lessons, and I want to send them to monasteries, because they've lived a debauched couple of years with all the werewolving and their psychedelics, and so they need to now learn the wonders of holotropic breathing. Let's go down a natural route. Let's become as spiritual as they possibly can be. And and then the final step here is when they return, they have all of these life experiences. I will tell them everything I've taught them. I'll tell them all of my methods, why I did everything, and then they have the capacity to be teachers themselves going forward for their own children. Now that they're free in the world, they can have their own children. It's gonna, they can all, in theory, set up their own academies, and it spreads in this manner. Well, yeah, let's do the final summary of the goals of the phase then. So they need to be undeniably masters in the field. I mean, I think we already gathered this was going to be the case anyway. They must innovate and now, show those innovative works to the world. Need to have a strong work ethic. The real berserker rage, the aggression needs to be channeled. And they'll have this with them at all times. But also be virtuous, just peaceful people, and always be in the process of cultivating virtue, becoming better and better people. And say ultimately, they themselves must be teachers, as they are now geniuses. Genius must teach genius.
The jelly junkie, he grins like a monkey, because his spunky funkiness will never cease. But the cynic, he's a killer cute winner. But I don't care what you say, I'm finding my way to peace.
Okay, to be honest, I'm not quite sure what my pet peeve is here this time. I'm just gonna roll with it, but I think it's like it's some kind of paradox, some kind of contradiction within myself, where I don't like whores that are actresses of which I think a lot are, but also I don't like actresses that aren't being whores, but they're pretending to be. It's a pretty niche. It's a pretty a niche complaint, but it's like, you know, you think about it, like an actress, say they're married, why do we just allow them to, like, you know, select a role and then they'll like be making out with someone, and we're like, oh, that's not infidelity because it's like it's a different world, you know what I mean? But it's like they could choose any role, they could choose literally any fucking role, but they always choose like this particular type, and everyone just goes like, oh well, it's a different world, you know what I mean? But it's like, she might as well just like be fucking like sucking a dick, and we'll just say it's a different. I was just saying this, I'm like, yeah, I don't even fucking believe anything I'm saying. Yeah, but bear with me, I do have a point here. And even there is some kind of a point there too. Maybe like it's not that wild, but you know, it's like how much of like a division should we make between real life and this fake constructed world, to say like, oh well, you can do whatever you want because it's not real, it's like it's on camera, you know. But yeah, let me rewind and think about where I got all these ideas in the first place. I was watching a film, and they just like randomly got their tits out in a scene coming out of like a shower, and it had nothing to do with the plot of the film. And then it made me realise like half of the nudity you will see in films is this, and which I guess the kind of justification would be like, oh well, people are, you know, are naked when they come out of a shower in real life, so we're just like, you know, being real, and like that's the artistic element. But it's like, really think about how weird that is, you know what I mean? Because there's only a few things that could really, how that could happen is like either the actress is a hoe that's just like a narcissist who's like, I'm going to show my body to everybody, and or like she's just been Weinstein, and the directors, you know what I mean? He's already had a little slice himself, and he's just like, yeah, fucking do this, and if you're not, you're not gonna be in the movie, you know what I mean? So that's the only thing I can really think it could be, or like from like the direct, because look, I'm an artist, and I don't want to say there shouldn't be, like I'll always stand by an artistic vision, and if someone says like I think that this is like my artistic creation and there should be an element of porn, but I think sometimes there should just be a division between it when it's not integral to the plot. Because I would think personally, if I was a director and I felt like I had to like show frivolous nudity, my plot was just weak. I didn't think I had a good story, so that must either be the case, or it's like an agenda of subversion. I'm going to show the whole world your titties. I will pervert the youth with your breasts. But yeah, it's like, why wouldn't they just say no? You know what I mean? This is the thing that fucking aggravates me. So why would they not just go, hey, I've read the script here, Harvey, and to be honest, this has nothing to do with the film, so why would I show my tits to you, a stranger, and now also like millions of other people? Like, is it really that easy to do? You know what I mean? And then another thing I've noticed with this, like nudity in films, it's like they always have a bush as well, like all the time they have a bushy pussy, and I've been on this planet for a fair bit now, I feel, and there's something I can tell you about a bushy pussy. It's a telltale sign of a bad temper and a dirty bedroom. You know, women with bushes go by the name of Lilith and have no regard for the maintenance of the nuclear family. You know what I mean? They have no, very little impetus to keep that going, and so that's the thing. You can ask them like, hey, what's your opinion on fucking polyamory? I'm pretty sure they'll be pretty open-minded to that. So I don't think my prejudices against these actresses as being hoes is completely unwarranted by the state of the mons pubis. And that's the thing. The whole thing is like, why select those roles to begin with? Like, they don't have to do it. You know what I mean? It's like they're already like minted, most of these actresses anyway. Why on earth would you even do it? So a level of hoe has to be there, but also it's like, just think about how weird it is that they even like show this as if it's integral to the plot, like it's like a pregnancy or something. You go, oh, okay, well, you have to kind of show the sex or whatever, or maybe it's like a climax of the scene, you know, and it's like a passionate sex scene between the two people. Fair enough. I mean, you know, it's probably a terrible film, but it's like, you can understand it. But then you even think like, hey, how weird is that though? You know what I mean? That's two people completely naked with each other, going and then fucking going to like getting paid like £1 million for it, and then and someday, like, you know, lifting up like a gold trophy. You know what I mean? Going, look, oh, I think it's I stand for the marginalised, like whatever, some like mad ass speech, and going to like walk into fucking Sainsbury's and acting like they're like a normal humanoid when like that's their existence. Like, is that not bizarre to anybody? You know what I mean? And if you're already naked, you know what I mean? It's like fucking. It's just weird that you would show that much too, but then not show real sex. Even though, like, that's what everyone's gonna fucking think of you anyway, you know what I mean? It's just a weird thing. But then I kind of question this. The contradictions are coming. Wait for it. It's gonna hit you, because I remember I seen another film called Nymphomaniac, it's called, and it stars Charlotte Gainsbourg, who's the daughter of Serge Gainsbourg, a French musician. You know, I really like her. He's like, he's got an instrumental track called Cannabis. I'd recommend you get on. It's there's a band called Goldie Looking Chain who had a hit called Your Missus Is a Nutter, and then I found out, like, coincidentally, just you know, looking for like random instrumental tracks, that it's actually Cannabis by Serge Gainsbourg. That's the whole track. So yeah, I recommend getting on to that. He's a funny guy character, but his daughter's in this film, right? And in this film, it's just this fucking Jewess getting DP'd by a couple of African brothers. But in this film, right, it's like you see the dick going inside of the ass and pussy, and then I found out, like, it's a body double, so it's not really her, but it looks like it. You know what I mean? And then it kind of dawned on me, like, that aggravates me. You know what I mean? Like, if you're Charlotte Gainsbourg, right, in 100 years from now, people are not going to know that that's not her getting fucking ploughed. You know what I mean? Two ways. You know what I mean? It's like, they're not going to know that. So she's always going to, like, people will think she's a hoe. So it's like, I don't know what kind of like integrity she's like retained by doing that, but just having a body double. You know what I mean? And then it makes me think, like, she's like a faker. You know what I mean? She's not fully committed to the role. She's she's taking a body double because someone's getting fucked. You know what I mean? But it's like, what, she won't do it. And if like I have to watch that degeneracy, but she's not willing to fucking do it. You know what I mean? What kind of wackiness is that about? You know what I mean? But then I found out about another film, and it was a French film. It's like, I don't know what's going on in France, like, but some other French film, and then they were like blowing someone, but it's a real blowjob on camera. And I was thinking, like, a part of me's like, yeah, that's Charlotte Gainsbourg, take some fucking notes. You know what I mean? That's how you do it. But then by the end of it, I was like, she's a fucking hoe. this actress is a fucking hoe as well. So I was like, that's my Yeah, that's my fucking my inner struggle at the minute. You know what I mean? It's like there's no, there's no there's no solace in this. It's like they're either fucking hoes or they're not hoes enough.
Though I'm not great at introductions, while the pendulum swings slow, I will swallow my reluctance. And so, here I go, here I go, here I go, here I go, here I go. What's your name, what's your number? Together we can conquer this rock. If I put 2 fucking fingers inside of your pussy and 2 in your eyes, let's call it the Spock, I would have the whole wide world safe in my hands while the rough seas tremble below. We could live long and prosper, baby, with my fucking hello. And then your eyes will say, I hope it was a greater pleasure knowing me as it will be knowing you.
And now the time has come to listen to the madness of the masses. If you'd ever like to contribute to this part of the podcast in future episodes, do send in your shit posts, your roasts, your burnt toasts, but maybe not milk toasts. Maybe not milk toast. But keep it to burnt toast for now. And of course your mother's anal gapes to pabspabulum@gmail.com, and do follow me across all social media at pabthecrab. We commence. King, I saw this and thought of you.
Because democracy basically means government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded. So let us say, government by the retarded, for the retarded, of the retarded.
Yeah, well, I've seen this before. This is a chap called Osho, and not much about it. I have said before, democracy is just a golden calf, and it's pretty on the money, I would say. What are your thoughts on climate lockdowns? And they've attached a pic. I say add them to the nucleus. If your city's willing to go along with this, they've pretty much surrendered their right to existence. So absolutely, get rid of them, and no one should go along with any of this shit. What do you think modern Britain will look like in 100 years? It's funny you mentioned this because I actually saw a video yesterday of Vince McMahon talking about the future of Britain. I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but if I can, I'll insert it. So I don't know if that's you asking the question there, Vince, but I'm going to say Britain may not exist in the next 100 years. And I don't want you to be blackpilled by that statement. Britain is the slave name of this nation. Albion is the true name. And perhaps it's easier to predict what's going to happen in the spaces in between the next 100 years. I think a lot of this, following century is going to be determined by our choices in the next 10 or 15 years. Rather than thinking about what the aftermath is going to be. So, because I think there's a few inevitabilities to come. I think there'll be far-right governance. I think the Overton window is already shifted on that one. Probably going to be mass deportations on the way. The reason for this is, in the sham of democracy, they sequester particular outlooks to the left and the right. So there's no real space in between for reasonable people to give alternative solutions. So it's, say, for example, in immigration, on the left wing, they basically criminalised critique of it altogether. Like, altogether, you can't critique it. I remember seeing a video about a week ago. It was of like some Kurds burning down Paris, like smashing bus stops, smashing cars, lighting on fire, and there was a comment on the video saying, any chance to demonise Muslims. Which, in fairness, like, yeah, I think Muslims are often unfairly thrown under the bus in any debate on immigration. And I don't have any issues with Muslims per se. But also, do you not have eyeballs? Like, why is it not an issue just to go like, hey, yeah, that's criminal behaviour. I wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that. Why are you now simping for criminals? And it's like, that's the thing, they have no right. Same thing with terrorism. A terrorist attack happens and they don't go like, oh, okay, that person never should have been brought into the country and shouldn't remain in the country. They just go like, oh, white people are bad too, though. Okay, what about the IRA? Because it's like, they cannot bring themselves to criticise it. They're in an ostrich cult, where they'll just put their head in the sand. So then the only viable option, and people who are willing to go against it, are going to be the far right. And even in the mainstream narrative is really to be against immigration. Has been that way for decades in bipartisan politics. No political parties ever ran on the platform of, hey, we're going to flood your country with immigrants, and that's what people have voted for to have. They've never ran on that platform. They've always run on the platform, we're going to reduce immigration. So it's undeniably a problem that the mainstream can't even hide from. But you see, they're just plutocratic pawns. The pawns of plutocrats, the globalist plutocrats, either party you vote for. That's why they're both going to be pro-mass immigration. They're going to be pro-hate speech laws. They're going to be pro the destruction of the family, irregardless of who you vote for. I mean, even now, say you have the Tories in power purely just to fix the problem of immigration. Is it happening? No, the direct opposite. These token pawns. Fucking Rishi Sunak and Sajid David, Priti Patel, like they really care about the plight of the Anglo, I'm sure. And I mean, and don't just take that as any kind of prejudice. There was a thing a few weeks back. There's a census in Britain. And it said that the native population are now the minority in Birmingham, which, to be honest, I thought was an established fact a good 20 years ago. I didn't really think that was news. But anyway, someone posted about that on Twitter. Sajid David, so again, a Tory MP, this fucking beanhead, replies to it saying, so what? Well, it's genocide. That's what... By their own globalist UN definitions, this is genocide. When you have demographic replacement of the native populace, it's genocide. That's what it is. You can't just replace an entire nation and then go like, oh, well, there's no problem with that. It's like, well, yeah, there's a fucking huge problem and it's going to be huge consequences, for them carrying out that plan and for the people who are behind that plan also. People are absolutely already aware of that. You see, like, and this, the thing is, like, as I say, I'm not even telling you what I want to happen here. I say I'm kind of politically homeless, and my own take on it's like I'm not far right. I'm just not far fetched. My immigration policies that just don't bring anyone into the country who wants to destroy the country. Don't import criminals, deport the criminals. That's it. Immigration outside of that don't really have much of a say on it. But you see, that's not an option. So because that's not an option where you couldn't do it on an individual basis, the only option left is going to be like far right football hooligan racists. That's the only option left for people, because there's nothing in between to go like, oh yeah, like I don't have to be any of those things, but also I'm not going to simp for criminals. And I say no immigrant should be against that also. Like, why would anyone be against the native population remain in the majority in our own homeland. That's not an unreasonable thing to want, to remain the majority in your own homeland. And in fact, again, it's genocidal to wish for anything else. It's not moral to wish for anything else. So I absolutely have the expectation that every non-native within the country should also have the same opinion. I mean, imagine being in fucking Japan and then going, oh, there's too much Japanese people. I mean, how insane would you have to be? How insane would you have to be? And if you moved to Japan because you wanted to be in Japan, the second it's less than 90% Japanese people, you're not in Japan anymore. There'll be a blockade from Japanese people having their culture because they'll go, oh, well, you're going to offend other people. So that's what's happening, not just on the demographic genocide, the cultural genocide. People cannot reassert their own culture because they'll go, oh, well, you've got to have hate speech laws because, you might offend the people we've imported into your country against your will. This kind of stuff. So it's like, it's not beneficial for anyone. It's not unreasonable to say that, you should remain the majority in your own homeland. And it would be a very easy fix. A very easy, peaceful fix. You just go, okay, well, there's clearly a problem. Let's, let's just up the numbers. Let's have a plan in place to, change the course of those demographics. And not really much would have to come from it. And I said that would be the benefit for the immigrants in the nation, because then there can be no grand conspiracy of replacement, because it wouldn't be happening. The issue you have is that it is happening. So, people are not going to enjoy that, and they're going to, want to fight back against that, as they should. So, and I say, bad immigration and collectivism is always to the detriment of all of the immigrants, because, not only if this is your home, well, you've just made your neighbourhood less safe. If you're going to import criminals, you've endangered your own sons and daughters on one level. And the second thing, let's say you're of Jamaican descent. Well, now they might import, one of Vince McMahon's inbred Pakistanis, and he might throw acid in a girl's face, rape children, sword fights, all of which are happening, and now you're implicated with that. Just because it's collectivist, and say the far right people are also collectivist, they're not going to have as much sympathy as me. They're not going to have as much common sense and go, okay, well, let's take it on a case by case basis. We can fix the demographic replacement. You can fix the terrorism and all the other crimes. You can do all of that, and really pretty simply. And things with that too, where people go like, oh, well, everyone commits crimes, so why is it a big thing if it's an immigrant? Well, with immigration, you're literally hand-picking who you want to be in the country. So if you're choosing to bring in criminals. That's literally the whole immigration process, is that you're hand-picking who you want and don't want. So they're literally picking criminals over non-criminals. So that's the issue. The expectation should be there's 0 foreign criminals. That should absolutely be the expectation. But say it's not, and the far right won't have as much sympathy. They're not individualists. They will just go, okay, we'll just deport people en masse. There's past precedent for this too. Mass immigration's been tried throughout the centuries, and it always ends this way. Either end in a civil war, genocide, or mass deportation. And I see mass deportation being a way. I mean, people are already also talking a lot about Jews. That's another thing I see come in. People will start talking much more about Jews, because in the game of collectivism, no one loses more than Jewish people. And when you have Weimar conditions, you get Weimar solutions, as the saying goes. So yeah, that's one element. The other inevitabilities, of course, climate lockdowns. We went through that nonsense before. They're going to release another virus probably. I don't see them, letting go of demonising unvaccinated people, because I feel like they put way too much into that to not let that go. And of course, World War III is always on the cards for them. So this is the globalist plan, and they've already put things in place to make this happen over the next few years. And it makes me kind of conflicted as to what the story then is of Britain. You see, because I think peace is inevitable also. but it's just I don't know whether we fight in the World War III and win. I don't know if we have to fight the war to get peace, or it's a matter of preventing it, or even it's gonna happen but we survive. You see, we're talking about Norse mythology. There's a story in Norse mythology of Lif and Lithrisur. And when I was a kid, I used to be terrified of World War III. I used to have dreams about going to an island, and all of the peaceful people in the world went to the island, and we would just like survive while the carnage went on around us. And there's a story set in Norse mythology, because in the Abrahamic religions, time's very linear, but in a lot of the mythologies of the past, it's cyclical. So I was talking about time cycles and stuff, but this is essentially Adam and Eve. You have Lif and Lithrisur. It's a man and woman who are left to repopulate the world at the end of the Ragnarok. The Ragnarok is just the apocalypse, where the world snake is released, and then you have all this corruption and the great big war at the end, and that's eventually slayed. Also the same thing in Hindu mythology with Indra and Vitra. You say my name, send me a location. Indra and Vitra. It's the same thing. Vitra is like the shape-shifting dragon demon, whatever. The snake. So we could call it whatever name you want. Satan Trismegistus, perhaps. But anyway, the world snake is released. There's this big global battle. But you see, there's a story with Lif and Lithrisur, which is that they survived the Ragnarok by hiding in a wood called a Hodmamis Holt. And I often think about this, and I wonder, is that Britain? Is that our destiny? Are we Hodmamis Holt? Where, you have the inevitable World War III that's going to happen. But as I said, I always had these dreams of an island of peace. But then it took me to my 20s to really realise, we are an island. You don't often think about it, but geographically we are an island. So are we not that island? And as I say, although I see inevitable, very militaristic right-wing people come into power, again, that might not also be a bad thing in the long term, as long as our military becomes about military defence rather than offence. So we should put our efforts into zapping planes from the sky to fly into our airspace, or nullifying nuclear weapons, for example. We should put all of our attention towards that, because to say we are an island, and I said this before with the military history, it makes it very hard to invade the island. In fact, it's pretty much impossible without it being balkanised. So that's why they're trying to balkanise it currently, because say in centuries past, millennia past, that's what would have to happen. It's too great of a risk. It's too big of an island. The weather's too shit. It really is way too big of a risk to ever want to invade on a whim. You have to have contact and intel and subversion from within. That's the only way you can invade the island. So, as long as we keep the frogs on side, there's no one that can really attack us, because anyone who's the designated villains for the upcoming orchestration of World War III would have to go through every other country to get to us. So we're actually geographically situated in a pretty decent place. It just depends on whether we want to be kind of go under the radar. So we're kind of slipping in the pecking order of the world stage. It might be a good thing, because maybe we're in the top 10 countries for a lot of places that we don't want to go to war with, but we're not anyone's number one country. So the more we fall down the pecking order of the world stage, which again probably going to happen in the next few years, probably a good thing. We can go under the radar. I say we should be working on securing the defences of the island. Again, the other thing with the mass deportations, well, then it makes it much more easier to arm the actual population, which is another inevitability that has to happen, because we talk about all of these inevitabilities, but you need regardless if any of them happen, you still need free speech. You still need the right to defend yourself. You still need to preserve the family. So even if there wasn't a world war, even if there wasn't any of the globalist agenda at play, it's like the country still wouldn't survive without those things. So again, those things are inevitable. If they don't happen, the country won't survive under any circumstance. It's not negotiable. So, you know, but again, that would be very easy to do once, you know who's in your country, rather than having thousands of potential criminals and everyone can now be armed. Not really going to be an option. So yeah, I mean, that's what I see. We're an island, so I may well see an Edo period. Say in Japan, they did this in the Edo period where they just cut themselves off from the rest of the world for a few hundred years. And see, we actually have that option. Other islands exist too, which I think may well survive. Iceland, for example. Who the fuck's going to want to nuke Iceland? You know, but I say geographically for the climate, I don't fancy the chances as much. But you know, that's still an option for all of the islands of the world. You can, whenever the World War III comes, you can just cut yourself off and go, maybe we won't participate. Maybe we'll just sit this one out. You know, we have that option, and people should be aware that we have that option, and, you know, not disarm ourselves, keep the nukes, just fucking go. We're going to have the best defense as well. Anyone flies overhead, you're getting zapped out the sky. You know, just to actually defend the people of the island. And then, you know, we will be live and literature to repopulate the world afterwards. But yeah, so we'll have to see what happens. I don't know. I started thinking maybe I should went for a joke answer now. You know, it's like, there's gonna be flying dildos, but yeah, so lots gonna happen in the time, and I think with the potential Edo period on the cards, so of course the family will be restored. There's going to be new clothes that are going to be made from within. I envisage new cuisines, new sounds from new instruments, and also a lot of archaeological discoveries. Is also what I predict. Game-changing archaeological discoveries will be made on the Isle of Albion also. I put out another question this week, which was, what do you think of universities? And one reply we got was from a joker who put, I prefer universe titties. Well, you know, I've got to say, tits really don't get enough praise in our society right now, and that's got to change. You know, I mean, of every shape and size, really, they should all get more love and support in our society. And you know, I've always been an advocate of breast is best, and you know, I think this is a necessary part of our future going forward. You know, the praise of the nip. Another person wrote in saying they need to stop with the woke bollocks, telling people there's 1,000 genders. Feminism, gender studies, and race baiting all need to go. Dare I say based? Yeah, pretty much onto it all. And the thing is, I've seen this happen, as I've said before, with perhaps me not being the best equipped to reform the education system, with me failing within the education system. It's like you have a better perspective this way for some things, and university is one of them, because you'll see people from school all go to university all around the world, all around the country, and then come out and like, I really like Karl Marx, yeah, I like Michel Foucault, and he's like, oh yeah, imagine my fucking shock, because you know, they're being taught the same things, and you know, any counterculture that they think they're a part of, they're being spoon-fed by the state itself. You know, they think they're rebelling against the state by like being a feminist or something, but it's like, no, they made you a feminist, they want you to be a feminist. I say, because it's ultimately an antenatal cult, and they're obsessed with depopulation. But you know what I mean? It's like it's always an illegitimate counterculture. The spoon feeding people the countercultures through the universities, and you see that when you don't go to university, and you see all of your friends go there and then come out. And another point, on a side note, the dumbest people I've ever met in my life all went to university. You know, it's no longer a badge of intelligence. And a lot of them, you know, became some of the dumbest people I know, but they weren't dumb when they went in. It's just because they got swept up into all of those cults. Got another one, Dearest Sugar Plum. It's been fucking ages since we had a sugar plum. So yeah, I do thank you, Dearest Sugar Plum. Here is a video for the pod this week. Perhaps in the future you could do a video of the week to encourage more people to send them in. ? You're a true legend. Keep smashing it. I appreciate your kind words. I appreciate your video. And yeah, the thing is like, I expect no one to really send things in these early days. Not a lot of people, and I do like it that way. So it's a close near thing at the minute. But yeah, maybe in the future, once we do start getting more and more videos in, that might be an idea, a video of the week. But no, I appreciate it, and let's check it out. You see, I am Attenborough's natural. Don't know if you know this. The monkey inserts his phalanges into the sphincter of the dog. And if you've ever spent a night in Newcastle, you'll know this is a regular occurrence in the primate world. But not content with merely infiltrating the anus, the monkey then proceeds to sniff his fingers, knowing full well that even the best chefs must also taste their own food. The BBC need to stop being woke and fucking get me on board. I am Attenborough's natural. So anyway, I do appreciate that video. Very funny. I'm going to be late for my appointment at the guy now, so better bounce. Hope you've had your thoughts provoked throughout these education episodes. I say the ambition of reducing the time. The episodes will recommence from this point forward. But I thank you all for sticking around, and thank you for taking the time to listen to it. And of course, a big dankeschön to all who've contributed to the podcast. Keep sending in your videos and your music, etc., and your artwork also. We'll be played out this week by a song called Recurring Nightmare by Troyen. This is a band formed way back in 1981, I'm told. And this song would give the Goblin King himself goosebumps. Do show them some love. The Wigger Slayers of Warrington followed them across social media at Troyen14. And I know they have some gigs coming up in a few months, so keep your eyes open for that. Keep your eyes peeled and check them out if you get the chance. Like, share, subscribe, and yank the bell end so you don't miss an episode in the future. I say send all your submissions into pazpadlim@gmail.com. Follow me across all social media at Pab the Crab. We are the algorithm. Buy a fucking book. Educate yourself and know that the time for peace is upon us.
tomorrow, can't hide from the past. Walking in shadow, shadow that's cast. Trapped in this cycle, how long will it last? Relief from the torture can't come too fast. Are you living in a nightmare? Is it just a dream? People all around you can't hear you scream. Hiding in plain sight, scars start to show. Friends are all around you, just don't wanna know. Your fight continues, trade blow for blow. Weaker and weaker,